And now, your host, Field Yates.
Thank you, Jeff the Fish. I am Field Yates, your bye-week replacement host, and today on the show, we're talking the fantasy fallout of the trade deadline. I give you my second half MVP pick, and Mike Clay stops by to play with ketchup and mustard. Seriously. So, Secret Squirrel, what kind of show will we have?
Today's show will be 75% more stylish, Field.
That's a pretty easy bet. Big news out of Buffalo right before the trade deadline with Kelvin Benjamin going to the Bills. And not just because of all the cold weather and 0-degree Kelvin jokes we can make now. By the way, Buffalo fans, the best way to protect against the cold is not to light yourself on fire and jump through a folding table. Instead, consider a slimming peacoat and wool scarf combo and a warm conversation with good friends. Now, as far as Benjamin's fantasy prospects in Buffalo, I honestly don't see him as a much different player than he was in Carolina. That is a mid-tier wide receiver, too. If you have Benjamin on your team, you're going to have him in your starting roster as much as you did, or did not, to this point in the season. I actually think the biggest winner for Buffalo in the deal is actually Tyrod Taylor. Think about it. Tyrod is quarterback 14 on a fantasy points per game basis so far this year, and has been with Jordan Matthews and Zay Jones as his top wide receivers, and that was without Charles Clay for half of the season. Since the start of the 2015 season, he has been quarterback 10 in fantasy points per game, despite hitting 250 passing yards in just 22.2% of his games. The 9 quarterbacks ahead of him during that stretch, they've thrown for more than 250 passing yards in 61.2% of their games. So now you give Taylor a major upgrade at the wide receiver position, and a favorable match second half of the season, the bid at the Chargers D, Indianapolis, and the Patriots twice. I see Taylor as a legit top 10 quarterback for the remainder of the season, and he's available in more than 30% of leagues. If you've been burned by the likes of Matt Ryan or Phillip Rivers this season, look to see if Tyrod Taylor is on your waiver wire or consider trading for him. The asking price shouldn't be too high, and then sit back and enjoy the delicious fantasy points. So the big winner at the trade deadline? Obviously the New England Patriots. Not because of the draft pick they picked up for Jimmy Garoppolo. No, I'm talking about their big acquisition of avocado toast. As a card-carrying millennial, there's nothing better than avocado toast. It's delicious, and it contains heart-healthy monounsaturated fat while being free of sodium, sugar, and cholesterol. Well done, avocados, and well done, Tom and Giselle. Some other winners at the trade deadline, but from a fantasy and not toast perspective, well, I already mentioned Tyrod Taylor with a legit receiver for the first time this year. He moves up from a top 15 quarterback to a top 10 option for me. And Devin Funchess is now the clear number 1 wide receiver in Carolina with Benjamin out of the picture. Funchess has had 6 or more targets in 7 consecutive weeks, and now there are 51 vacated Benjamin targets that need to be replaced. Funchess is still available in more than 20% of leagues, so see if he is in yours. And my other big deadline winner, Miami's running back, whoever that might be. I'm guessing Kenyon Drake over Damian Williams, but Jay Ajayi had 152 touches this season, 8th in the league. Those are going to have to go somewhere, and it's probably a bad idea to have Jay Cutler throw more. So Drake and or Williams are about to become fantasy relevant in a big way. And maybe one of them will even figure out what Jay Ajayi couldn't. How to get in the end zone. And my big deadline loser is LeGarrette Blount. We don't know yet how Jay Ajayi will be used in Philadelphia's offense. Eagles VP Howie Roseman said that Blount is still the starter. Whether you believe that or not, what we can know for sure is that Blount is about to get a lot fewer carries. He was already touchdown dependent in fantasy, and he only has 2 touchdowns on the season. Don't rush to drop Blount, but he's no better than an RB3 for me this week against a tough Denver defense.
Bonjour, monsieur. Did you order the avocado toast?
Why, yes, I did.
That will be $27.50.
Worth it. At the start of the season, there were 4 clear must-start fantasy players on the Packers. Quarterback Aaron Rodgers, running back Ty Montgomery, and wide receivers Jordy Nelson and Davante Adams. Halfway through the season, Aaron Rodgers is likely out for the rest of the fantasy season. Nelson and Adams combined for 3 catches in Week 7. And Ty Montgomery, no one really knows what to make of him. And over the last two games, both Montgomery and Aaron Jones, when they've been active, Aaron Jones has a 34-16 touch advantage and an 81-27 snaps advantage. After having 0 carries for the first 3 weeks of the season, Jones came out of nowhere in Week 4 and now looks to be the man on a Green Bay team that will likely lean on the run with Rodgers out. I have Jones as my RB15 this week, with Montgomery down at RB28. Like the Bears with Jordan Howard and the Dolphins with Jay Ajayi a season ago, it looks like the Packers stumbled into a back that was already on their roster that was better than they realized. And now, today, the fantasy show has stumbled into a much more handsome host. So, look, Matthew isn't here today, and now I'm about to stand in his spot and sing the praises of his ride or die, Kareem Hunt. I realize it looks a little, awkward. It's like popping in to visit your buddy's girlfriend 5 minutes after he heads out of town for a trip.
Oh, Field, honey, don't you worry about it. If you were a little rounder, you could roll into my life whenever you wanted.
Thanks, I guess, Crystal.
No problem. I'd give you a suggestive wink, but my eyelids don't move.
But Matthew's love for Kareem Hunt aside, I feel like I have every right to love him too. But instead of saying it, I'm just going to show it. Daniel, please enter the door.
Oh, yeah, you got it, bud. It's Carol Singer's Field. And now, your host, Field Yates!
Thank you, Jeff the Fish. I am Field Yates, your bi-week replacement host, and today on the show, we're talking the fantasy fallout of the trade deadline. I give you my second half MVP pick, and Mike Clay stops by to play with ketchup and mustard. Seriously. So, Secret Squirrel, what kind of show will we have?
Today's show will be 75% more stylish, Field.
That's a pretty easy bet. Big news out of Buffalo right before the trade deadline with Kelvin Benjamin going to the Bills. And not just because of all the cold weather and 0-degree Kelvin jokes we can make now. By the way, Buffalo fans, the best way to protect against the cold is not to light yourself on fire and jump through a folding table. Instead, consider a slimming peacoat and wool scarf combo and a warm conversation with good friends. Now, as far as Benjamin's fantasy prospects in Buffalo, I honestly don't see him as a much different player than he was in Carolina. That is a mid-tier wide receiver, too. If you have Benjamin on your team, you're going to have him in your starting roster as much as you did, or did not, to this point in the season. I actually think the biggest winner for Buffalo in the deal is actually Tyrod Taylor. Think about it. Tyrod is quarterback 14 on a fantasy points per game basis so far this year, and has been with Jordan Matthews and Zay Jones as his top wide receivers, and that was without Charles Clay for half of the season.
Jameis Winston, you have him at 15th, and consensus has him inside the top 10. What's up with that?
As usual, I buck some trends, and I'm right. Over the past 5 games, the Saints have allowed 158.8 passing yards per game, the best in the NFL, while surrendering just 3 touchdown passes and racking up 9 interceptions. Even worse for Jameis, since Week 4, only the Jaguars' defense has allowed fewer fantasy points to quarterbacks than the Saints defense. Winston has thrown just 4 touchdowns over his last 138 passing attempts, and maybe it's part of that throwing shoulder being injured. He's been playing through pain for the past couple of weeks. Maybe it's simply that this offense has not come together nearly as we expected it to. The Bucs have been a major disappointment, not just Jameis Winston. I prefer a guy like Jared Goff as a streamer this week. All right, Daniel, what's next?
Next up, I believe our boss, Norby, has a question.
Yeah, Matthew, hey, I'm glad you took my advice and got that hair treatment. You're much more TV friendly, my friend. Speaking of TV friendly, when I watched the Cowboys game this weekend, which running back is getting the ball? My assistant told me you were high on somebody named Alfred Morris.
So my hair is a different color and a lot fuller, but yes, I am. It's a volume thing for Alfred Morris, who has, actually played this season compared to a guy like Darren McFadden. And Jerry Jones has gone on record to say that Alfred Morris is likely to get the most carries amongst the Cowboys' backs, but to be clear, McFadden will be involved, and so too will Rod Smith. So there's so much to replace with Zeke Elliott, who has been one of 2 backs in the league to get over half of his team's touches so far this season. But for me, I've got Alfred Morris just inside my top 20. You look at some of these other backs that he's in the mix with. These are players who have seen a steady workload, Maybe not so much in the touchdown department, but yeah, I think Alfred Morris playing behind a good offensive line is inside my top 20. All right, Daniel, what else?
All right, next up, we have a question that comes in the form of a tweet from a viewer. Anthony Ali tweets us, quote, "At Daniel Dopp is hilarious."
What does that have to do with anything?
It's just true.
That works. Okay. Well, not really a question. But how about talk about Golden Tate? Because you love the Detroit Lions. And since 2014, when he signed with Detroit, only 14 players have at least 260 catches. But no one has fewer TDs than Golden Tate. Plus, the Lions just haven't been good against Green Bay of late. Matthew Stafford is 3-10 against the Packers and 1-5 at Lambeau Field, where this game is going to be played. That game will be, of course, on ESPN on Monday Night Football, which is why I've got Golden Tate a little bit lower than the consensus ranks. He's a player I like, and he's been hot of late, but just a tad lower given the history. All right, Daniel, what else?
Next up is
Yeah, hold on there, Doc. I have a question for
Okay.
Field and Stream. Ing defenses. Straw man slurping up all these awful puns. Anyways, after watching the Seahawks get lit up by Deshaun Watson, I am downgrading them to a streamer. What does your little 5th grade ranking textbook say about that one, Field?
Watch Strawman, because prior to Deshaun Watson, Seattle led the NFL in points per game allowed at 15.7, just ahead of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they had allowed just 5 touchdown passes with 5 interceptions in the first 7 weeks of the season before Watson. You couple that with the fact that Washington's offensive line is a shell of itself right now. Trent Williams, their best player on offense, he's banged up. They allowed 4 sacks last week. That was tied for the most they've allowed in a single game this season. I expect Seattle's defense, even if Earl Thomas does not play, to look exactly like it does in most weeks, which is an obvious must-start defense. Top 2 for me. Up next, we tell you who will regress and who will improve in the second half of the season, and we do it in the only way that makes sense, while squirting condiments everywhere. Stay tuned. Mike Clay is here. Mike, you wrote a column in which you point out players that you think will regress over the second half of the season, either scoring more or less touchdowns than they have so far. And I want to get all that information. I'm sure it's pretty good, but most importantly, we have a ton of leftover costumes from Halloween, and we decided to come up with a new segment.
Let's do it.
Time for catch up or must start. Wait for it. Yeah!
Okay, so Daniel has joined us along with Fabricio and Marcello in costume. Daniel,
Yeah.
take it away if you would.
You bet. Here we go. Julio Jones. Is he a must start or is he going to struggle to catch up?
Well, I think he is a player who will score more touchdowns in the second half. My stat OTD that I use for scoring opportunity, 3.4 this season. That's almost where he was last year, Field, at 4.2, and he had 6 touchdowns. He only has 1 so far this season. 6th in the NFL with 8 end zone targets. So we're going to go with must start.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that just
Well,
happened.
got all over my suit, too. Perfect.
Fantastic.
We're off to a good start.
I'm
Keep
going to
going.
agree with that.
Keep going.
Mike, you are a team player.
I'm going right
particularly
to the dry cleaner.
on the
Keep it
scene.
going.
But I would say this. He's a must-start as well. It's Julio Jones. He's a freak. And I like to see mustard dancing. I'm going to do this, but a little more gently.
Oh, okay.
I should have let you go first. See what happened.
All right. Next
next?
up, we have Will Fuller. Is he a must start or is he going to struggle to catch up?
I think we need to get some red on that costume, so we're gonna go. We're gonna go with needs to catch up here. He has 7 touchdowns on just 13 catches so far this season. He's scored on 29.2% of his looks. That's carries plus targets this season. The next closest in the entire NFL Field is 19%. It's nowhere close to sustainable. He's coming back.
Okay, I get all your points there, Mike. And by the way, please,
Wait a
be
minute.
careful.
It's catch up.
Okay, I'm sorry, catch up.
All right,
I'll
here we
keep
go.
this handy. There we go. Nice.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
nice. Yeah, that worked
Fantastic.
out for you.
Thank
So
you,
I get it.
guys.
I get what you're saying. 7 touchdown catches on just 13 total receptions. That's as many touchdown catches as Jarvis Landry has since the beginning of last season. Landry, a fine player from Miami. I get it. Yes, I understand it's not going to sustain in terms of touchdown volume, but right now, anything that has any relation to Deshaun Watson, I am in on. Will Fuller, a trust the talent, former first-round pick with big playability, and the volume has started to increase too. 5 catches in the last game. To me, still a must-start.
All right.
All right.
Next up, we have Broncos wide receiver Demaryius Thomas. So is he a must start or is he going to struggle to catch up?
Well, he should have probably closer to 2 touchdowns. He has had 5+ each of the past 5 seasons. He's been getting some decent opportunity in that offense. And actually, Pierre Garçon is the only player in the NFL with more targets among players without a touchdown. So he is a must start.
Come on, grab the mustard, man.
Oh, man. Okay.
I'm scared now.
I'd be scared if I were you, too.
A little less power and force behind that. Here's the problem I have with Demaryius Thomas. Brock Osweiler, like we've gotten to the point in this universe where Brock Osweiler is now the starting quarterback again for the Denver Broncos. He has been on the NFL carousel of quarterbacks. The quarterback play is just so limiting. He's going to struggle to catch up the rest of the way. This passing game, I get it. The matchups are going to be, fine the rest of the way. Not like it's a harrowing schedule, but for me, not a lot of upside in this offense right now.
You heard it here first. No more touchdowns for Demaryius.
Yeah, zero.
Zero. Zero.
This is going great. This is going
this is
great.
going
Minus
off
for your suit, Mike. But let's take a quick break.
Yes, it's bad.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
And we're back.
We're back.
Have at it.
Next up, we have Chris Thompson from the Redskins. So my question is he a must-start, or is he going to struggle to catch up the rest of the way?
Yeah, 4 touchdowns in his first 3 games, only has 1 in his past 4. Coming back to earth already, but it's going to continue. This is kind of crazy. He has no carries inside the 7-yard line. He has one target inside the 7-yard line. Just not getting work in that area. If you don't get work near the goal line, you don't score touchdowns. So Chris Thompson needs to catch up.
Oh, wow. Okay. Come on, don't be shy. All right, that was a little too.
Yeah, watch out for my suit. This thing was recently dry cleaned itself. So I get it, Mike. A lot of your points you made are very good. Touchdown, it's going to regress, but the fact that he still leads the NFL in yards after the catch, the fact that he is probably the most productive pass catching back to this point of the season, I think he's still a must start. I'm in on Chris Thompson.
I like it. All right, guys, last one that we have.
Are you happy about that, Daniel?
You know what? Yesterday I said no more costumes. Today I realized that I made a bad mistake.
You forecasted your fate. Yes, Mike, what do you have? Or Daniel, what do you have?
Last one we have. Michael Crabtree. Is he going to be a must start, or is he going to struggle to catch up the rest of the season?
Yeah, he's coming back to earth here. 6 touchdowns so far. He's actually 3rd in the NFL in end zone targets with 10. That's good. The problem is he only has 2 additional targets inside the 15-yard line. He can't keep up this scoring pace. He is coming back to earth, so he needs to catch up.
Oh, gosh. Oh, my
boy,
goodness.
that just happened. That just happened.
Oh, got it in your hair. Hey, back
Be careful. Be careful.
Okay.
All right.
Cool.
I actually think that Mike is right on this one, so I'm going to go
keep going.
Catch up. We're running a little low on ketchup.
So
I'm just going to throw some mustard in here as well, just for those
guys.
in the Bay Area. I still believe there's a mustard.
This would be a fun show, but I was wrong.
It's just like going to the tattoo shop for you. We're just rounding out the sleeves.
Really similar.
Looks good.
You know,
too much
mustard every
for
single
me.
week. Mike Clay is a must start every single week. Thanks, Mike.
Anytime.
We'll be back with Don't Be This Guy, and we're not talking about Daniel. First, today's blind resume. 2 wide receivers with very similar profiles. Both have been targeted and caught passes at nearly the same percentage of their route, and barely difference in their yards per route run. Who's who? Find out after the break. The same player because he goes from a bad quarterback to another bad quarterback.
It's amazing that Denver hasn't been able to shore up that quarterback position. But Demaryius Thomas is doing everything he can. Hopefully getting Emmanuel Sanders back sooner rather than later will be helpful for him. But listen, this is Demaryius Thomas until he gets somebody better back there.
Listen, he's got wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 2 upside. And it's not a bad matchup against Philadelphia this Sunday. But this Denver offense, to put it politely, is stuck in the mud.
Yeah, no good.
It's time for today's Don't Be This Guy. And today's fantasy loser comes from Chris Higgins. The loser in Chris's league had to play dizzy bat, catch a football, then gallivant into the sunset on a stick horse until he made it to the ocean for a nice dip.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. In a Speedo.
That actually looks pretty good.
What do you mean by good?
Well, I'm just saying.
He just fell over.
Yeah, but it's form-fitting. It was a nice catch. I mean, I've seen people,
His friends are having a lot of fun with this one.
Yeah.
Don't do this. Don't be this guy.
That's not too bad.